Welcome to Noon Hour Slides from the Moose Jaw Museum and Art Gallery. We're located on Treaty 4 territory, the traditional lands of the Blackfoot, Cree, Ojibwe, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. We pay our respects to First Nations and Métis ancestors and reaffirm our relationship with one another. We gratefully acknowledge funding from the City of Moose Jaw, SaskArts, SaskCulture, Saskatchewan Lotteries, Canada Council for the Arts, Canadian Heritage, and the Government of Canada. I'm Vincent Hotelling, the Administrative Assistant here, and I'm here to welcome you to today's presentation. Gayle Jones is here to talk to us about Denmark. Welcome.
So this was the second half of my trip this past fall. We went to Poland first, and we spent 2 weeks there, and then we went to Denmark. Now, the reason we went to Denmark is we were blocked out of Norway. And so then what was our second choice? Well, Noreen, my travel partner, wanted to go to Denmark. Anyway, this picture is from when I first went many years ago to Sweden, and we're flying into Copenhagen. And this was in 2012, and you can see all those windmills, because Denmark is a country that is very concerned about the greenhouse gas, the environment, and so they were well ahead of time in terms of wind energy. They're very conscious that 80% of their household waste is recycled. They ride their bikes. The taxis in Copenhagen all have to be electric in 3 years. They are well ahead of the curve. They're very good world citizens, the Danes. I have great respect for them after this trip to Denmark. Here's another picture I took on the Jutland Peninsula, and again, more windmills. Most of it is agricultural area with cows and grain grown. And here is Skagen. It's a smaller town, and it's quite lovely to walk around. We weren't in tourist time because it was just after beginning of September. All the tourists had gone. The cruise ships weren't stopping, and of course there weren't any cruise ships because it was COVID. So it was quite quiet in Skagen. I can't imagine this small town overrun when the cruise ships get going, but it's a pretty little town. They've painted all their houses yellow, and the train and the station was very good. Walt and Dorothy's daughter live in Denmark, and their daughter Erin gave me a lot of tips on how to use the trains in Denmark during COVID that we wouldn't have known, and gave us a lot of travel ideas. So anyway, it was great to have that contact, especially when it came to all the train travel and all the red tape during COVID. And here's some more of the little town. It is known for its artists, and about the time the group of 7 was working in Canada, a bunch of Danish artists got together. Some had been trained in the Impressionists in France. There was a fellow from Sweden that joined the group of artists here. Apparently, I'm not an artist, but there's something to do with the light at the tip of the Jutland Peninsula that is muted or something. I don't know. You artists would probably know all this, but I really didn't know that much. So these are a couple of the artists. One of the famous ones was Carl Anker and Kreuer, are the two main ones. And this is the art museum at the back. Now, how I know when this art museum was started was when I was watching that Danish show, The Seaside Hotel. These women at the Seaside Hotel get upset with their husbands and decide, we're taking off for the day, we're going into Skagen. And then they said, oh, the art museum's opening up in Skagen. And the Seaside Hotel is about the 1920s. So I know that this art museum's 1920, and the women were all excited because they said, oh, Anna Anker is going to be there, and that's Carl Anker's wife, who's also an artist in her own right. So anyway, this museum's been around since the 20s. This is a few of their pictures. They do pictures of the life of times. Most of them were fishermen at the time. And here's some of their paintings. And this one, I quite love this one. This one is called Death of a Fisherman. I think that was by that Carl Anker as well. Now, these ones are the two ladies. Is Paul Kreuer was the one who painted this. And this is a picture of Anna Anker and this Kroyer's wife. And that just gives you one of the ideas of the light and whatever. This hotel was also mentioned in the Seaside Hotel because the ladies said after they went to the art museum they wanted to go have lunch at the Brondemans, which is this hotel here, which has been around a long time. This was the artist hung out here in the turn of the century, and also who stayed and wrote here besides Hans Christian Andersen was Isak Denison, that wrote Out of Africa. She wrote Out of Africa when she was staying at this hotel. And so anyway, the artists all frequented this. And in fact, that's where Carl Anker met Anna and married her because she was the daughter of the guy that ran this hotel. We tried to get in here for lunch, but you had to get a reservation, even for supper. Couldn't get in for lunch or supper, but we wanted to have eat at this place. It's quite obviously famous for many years. Here's a picture that one of them painted. It is of the Anker family in this hotel. And so anyway, they're quite famous in Denmark, this group of artists. And again, we're back on the street. Now this is an old fishing hut. They weren't painted yellow at the time, but they've just become painted yellow to make spruce up the little town. This is the harbor area, the more marina type. There's more commercial harbor just down the way. And again, at the edge of the harbor, there are all these places to eat fish and have a drink and sit in the sun and enjoy yourself and have some fish. Now here's an old lighthouse tower and had to be manned. This thing sitting there, this was I didn't realize what this was. This is a beacon. So they lower it, light the fire, raise it up, and then people could send messages, yatter back and forth, in the olden days. And so here is this is all sand. All the land in the Jutland is pretty well sand, and this is some of the grasses that grow on this sand dunes. And wild roses. Those are massive rose hips on these wild roses. And some heather. Now, this is the path. You can ride out the tip of Jutland where the Baltic meets the North Sea. Or you could take a bus, but it's not tourist season, so the buses weren't running. So we walked. It was 5K there, 5K back, but we were game, and of course you could ride your bikes, which looked like a pretty good idea by the time we were here, but whatever. And this is Grennan. This is the tip of Denmark, and there's a little map at the top of that. And this is the curse of Denmark, being so close to the strait. And here's a German bunker from the Second World War. And so that's why they went to Denmark. They had a strategic location here. And those are left over. You can see the tip of the Jutland just straight ahead there. And that's where we're off. Some people walk, but we took this big tractor vehicle that you can see there. So we got on this and it took us out to the ocean. And you can see how deep the sand is from the ruts of that vehicle. But it was just lovely out there, lovely day, sunny, perfect day to go see that. Look at, they're having fun with kites, and everybody wants to get out the tip of the peninsula as far as they can and put their foot in both seas.
Oh, lovely. Was that a tractor pulling that?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. It was quite neat, but what a fun day. It was just the perfect day to be out and I don't know about you artists about light or whatever, but I'm sure you can see something I couldn't. Anyway, we went back for lunch and had lunch and headed off the other direction because we wanted to see something that was called the Buried Church, which I'll explain later. But on the way, we saw that building, and a neighbor lady along the route said that was a sort of a place for celebrities to I couldn't figure out whether it was a detox center or an old folks home, but somehow they were recuperating in that hotel-like complex. There is that ship in the background, and it never moved. So I'm thinking it was not being used because of COVID, and it was just, parked there for the duration. And this gives you an idea of what is actually under that undergrowth. It's just sand. That's what it is. Now, this is the buried church that we were supposed to get. Now, it was still another mile or a kilometer and a half away, which would be 3 more K we would have had to walk. Did we want to go there? We thought, well, if we went there, maybe we could talk a ride out of somebody back to the town. But it was getting like 4:30, and we thought, well, maybe the odds of finding another tourist ride back to town may be remote. So looking back, we should have gone, but we didn't. We chickened out and went home. We should have gone. But that's what one of the things you wish you'd done is gone to the buried church. But anyway, this is what it would have looked like in its day. Only the tower remains. But why they had to stop using the church was in the mid-1800s. The sand kept coming in, and every Sunday before church, they had to dig out, not snow, but they had to dig out of the sand. And so finally, the guy just said, oh, just let it go. This is just getting ridiculous, having to shovel sand out just to get into the place. So it's been abandoned since then, but this was the buried church. If you go a little bit further, there's a whole huge bunch of sand dunes, just like out by Leader. And that's further along. We need another day. We should have had another day, and then we could have done the buried church and the sand dunes well. But anyway, so Skagen was a wonderful little stop. And then we took a train from Skagen straight south into the place at the bottom called what looks like Odense, but I think they call it something more like Odense or something. Anyway, what looks like what we would say is never really how it's pronounced. We need Aaron here to tell us the real name. Anyway, we came down and transferred by Frederikshavn, which is the major big port there. And then we transferred by Aalborg and got down to Odense. But really, that took 4 hours of straight travel. It was a long ride. I always keep thinking Denmark, it's so little to be anywhere in an hour, but you really, really can't. Anyway, you notice that the islands, this island, the Jutland, is connected to this island by a little causeway, and the same with this, by a bridge into the main island where Copenhagen is. Odense is sort of the home of Hans Christian Andersen, is its claim to fame. Here's Noreen, the lady I travel with, taught with her in Fernie, and we've been pairing up to travel together since her husband passed away around 2006. We do travels together. Again, we're stopping for our afternoon beer. We had trouble in Odense because we couldn't find a hotel. We couldn't understand, why can't we find a hotel in this town? But we did. Good old Noreen, she found us a hotel, but then we couldn't find restaurants to eat in. We had to keep reserving them. We thought, well, this is dumb. Why do we have to reserve it? Well, it turns out there was a rock concert, and all the young kids were coming in from all over. The place was full with university kids, and they're having a great time. They were having a wonderful time, but we had to beg ourselves into one restaurant. We ended up getting to some place. The only place that we could get into had a 12-course tapas supper, and we had to beg to get in, and they did open up some kind of a table for us. But it was quite a lively place that day. But it's a nice city, and we had. And I'm sure Walt and Dorothy have had a lot of these. They're open-faced sandwiches called smørrebrød or something like that. And you can see they have one in the middle has a pear on blue cheese with walnuts. And we've got some meat and pickles and salmon and so on. They're very good and very filling and quite fun, the meals. There's a lot of fish. I ate a lot of fish in Denmark, and it was very good. So Odense, this is their city hall, some artwork in front of it. Also, a local big name is King Canute, and his claim to fame, he was killed in a peasants' revolt and got killed on the altar of the church, so he became a saint. So anyway, here he is. King Canute the Saint, martyr, and his bones are maybe buried not previously in a church. This is a newer church than in the church that he was killed in. And it was at one time Roman Catholic, and they've kept the altar piece, but you notice how stern it is and plain it is. And so it's actually become a Protestant church like the ones are in Denmark. And so it doesn't have all the finery. So here's the basement of the church. And who's in it? The bones of King Canute. So anyway, as I've gone around Europe, I've seen, John the Baptist's hair, the body of the three wise men, St. Lucia's finger bones. And so add the King Canute's skeleton to that list. So anyway, also who's buried here is Hans Christian Andersen is buried in this church as well. And because they like Hans Christian Andersen, he's their native son, they have this park, and here's a little boat there for the little soldier, his book that of the same name. And here's a new museum that they have built. We went to what was called the soft opening. It isn't completely up and running yet, but it had a lot of great things. It's got his original books. It's got letters he's written. It has sort of a a lot of, I don't know, virtual things. I don't know. It's quite modern, interactive exhibits and so on. It's a very good one. And when everything's up and running, it'll be quite a spectacular place. The building itself was quite amazing. So, and of course, here's some statues of Hans Christian Andersen, and it tells the story of why he wrote the different stories he did. Here's his neighborhood where he grew up, and the place that where he was born. So then off we are into Copenhagen, and then from there, the first day we go to Helsingør up here, and then we go to Roskilde. Those are the two places, and then we spent a day in Copenhagen. So we had 3.5 days in Copenhagen when we were there. The first thing we did when we got to Copenhagen the next morning is we had to go and we had to get all our COVID shots and get them all documented. And we had to go online and fill out this form before we went to get our shots. And wouldn't you know, I put the wrong phone number in. I put in my home phone number because I thought it was, they wanted to contact you later. But no. Anyway, by some reason, I don't know what I was thinking, I put in the wrong phone number. Well, we got there and it was a big schmozzle. And I said, oh, well, they'll just call up the database and change my phone number. That's no big deal. Oh, it was. I had to make up a whole new email account, and I had to redo the whole form. And this lovely lady on the side there in the yellow helped us out because it was ridiculous. We must have spent 45 minutes there trying to get this whole mess straightened out. Just gonna put the wrong phone number in. Anyway, whatever. You never know who can help you out. So this lady was just a lovely lady, very patient with us two old ladies, although Noreen knows what she's doing. She's really good at this, so she doesn't have to worry. But anyway, off we are to Helsingør, and this castle is actually where Shakespeare placed Hamlet. This is Hamlet's castle, Helsingør Castle. This is the one that he used as his location. It has two moats. Because it's so close to Sweden, it was a very defensive castle and quite important. It's still one of the royal castles, although I don't think much really goes on of a royal nature here, but it's quite a lot. Look at the building, it's quite wonderful. In the summer, they have Hamlet productions, and you can go and get tickets to Hamlet. And these are the pictures of the different people that have played Hamlet over the years. And of course, our Canadian fellow in there, and Christopher Plummer and Kenneth Branagh and so on. And we are so close to Sweden. This is across the strait from Helsingør Castle. Sweden is on the opposite side. We're so close that Noreen's cell phone pinged and said, "Welcome to Sweden." That's how close we were to Sweden. And that part of Sweden was actually controlled by the Danes for many years. In fact, when I was there with the Rotary Club, they were saying that a lot of people in southern Sweden, or Skane, actually consider themselves more Danish descent than Swedes. So they're quite tied together quite a bit. There's ferries that cross as well. And they're so close that, in fact, one of the big money makers for the Danish country is Erica Pomerania started taxing people going through these straits. And it continued for many years, many centuries actually. And the Danish people made a lot of money out of taxes coming through these straits. And of course, they're ready for the defense, because of course Sweden is so close, and they've been at, they have battles off and on during their history. Now, we stayed at a place called Nyhavn, which is his new harbor, and it was dug out to let ships come closer into the city to drop off their supplies. It became sort of a sailor's hangout with, of course, brothels and bars, etc. But they cleaned it up, and now it's all hotels and restaurants for the tourists. There's a boat here we take out into the harbor. Oh, and a historic boat there as well. We took a tour out in the harbor. There's the Opera House. And of course, the various things you see in harbors, people canoeing. This is interesting. These were some, those containers that they've made into student housing. So I thought, well, what clever reuse. So, and of course, on the harbor tour, you see the Little Mermaid. It's way quite far north, out of the main part of the city. You have to walk quite a ways to get it. On the little tour, we only saw the back of the mermaid at this point. And then, of course, you go on the canals, you go underneath. This is the Christiansborg Castle. I went in, and Palace. I went in there the first time I went to Copenhagen, so I didn't go this time. And Noreen was tired of going into palaces and castles after Poland, so we didn't go this time. Their parliament buildings are here, and they use it for state occasions. This is Nyhavn at night, and this is where we ate every night, and it was very pretty. And who took us the first night was Erin. Erin Kuchuk came and got us sort of acclimatized to Copenhagen. She came down riding her bicycle, and we'll have to ask Dorothy and Walt, but I don't think they even own a car, do they? I don't think they do. But anyway, the weather's so nice that she rode her bike down, and we had a wonderful visit. And we were asking, like, on the way on the train, and we saw people setting up for some event, and we didn't know what it was. So she told us, oh, it's the Royal Run. It's kind of like the Terry Fox Run. They raise money for cancer. And anyway, her husband was going to run in this event. And we got, oh, yeah, whatever. Anyway, so at least we knew what it was that they were setting up for. So anyway, we had a wonderful visit with Erin, but we didn't get to see her little boy. He's 3 years old, Vigo. But anyway, some point, well, I'll get to see Vigo. He's the same, just a little bit older than my grandson. We had mussels. They were wonderful. That's what I'm eating there. We had them a couple of times as well as fish and things. Anyway, it was just a wonderful evening we had with Erin. She was just a delight. It was just so much fun. And so the next day we come back, and well, they got these Royal Run shirts on, and go, oh yeah, okay, there's the Royal Run. And we saw, oh, it's just for kids. They're getting their little medals and whatever. So then we decided to go eat. So we're going to cross this bridge, and there's all these people on the bridge. What the heck's going on? So anyway, we're on this very narrow bridge, and and then we look up, and there's a sign that says Royal Run Start. So we're right at the starting line of this Royal Run. Well, we didn't even know where in the heck we were, really. It wasn't for Erin. We wouldn't even know this thing existed. So anyway, here's the television cameras on up. They're interviewing people. Look where Noreen is. We were living in fear that the television camera would ask us questions about what, and we don't even know where we are. Anyway, we were hoping they didn't interview us on the TV. But anyway, thank goodness they didn't. But they did interview a couple who had a foreign exchange student living with them. And this was a really big thing in Denmark. They are so internationally aware The international community is part of their community. They are real citizens of the world. I have great respect for the Danes after this. They are just a real contributor to the world. Anyway, so here they're interviewing. And here's all the hot shots are the first in line, and they're all set to go. And who is this guy? Frederick. He's the Crown Prince of Denmark, this guy. And he's right beside us on this bridge. And he's going to start the race with his starting pistol. This was like one of those moments where you're just sort of like, geez, how do we luck into this? Anyway, this is the Crown Prince of Denmark right ahead of us. And there wasn't any security. The only security I think he could have was the guy in the gray suit, because there was nobody on the bridge, and the guy in the gray suit was somebody else, walked down the length of the bridge. So I'm thinking that guy is maybe the security, but nobody asked us who we were. We could have been anybody. Nobody cared. Of course, I guess we're a bunch of old ladies. I mean, we would care, but still nobody was checking any ID or anything. It was completely open. It was amazing. Anyway, there's Frederick, and who the heck are these other people? This other woman here, Charlotte, I don't know who she was. She's no royal person. She wasn't his wife. His wife was somewhere other part of the country doing another race, starting another race. But anyway, there he is looking very royal. And here he is with look at his brand new sneakers and his fancy sunglasses, and he's going to start the race. Anyway, here's all the big shots. They're starting line, ready to go. And they're off, and they're looking at their watches, ready to go. And then these guys are a little bit slower. And then finally we got the Sunday joggers in their Santa Claus suits and whatever. But anyway, the reason we came this way is we wanted to go have supper. Well, these people ran. There was a steady stream of this many people for a half an hour, and we couldn't even get across. And Pommy said, when are they going to stop? They just kept coming and coming and coming. There's something like 30,000 to 40,000 people who ran in Copenhagen alone. And then the whole of the country was actually involved in this run. So it's quite a big deal. Anyway, all I know is we couldn't get across to eat supper because we had to wait for all these runners to finish up. But anyway, it was quite one of those fun things you just happen to luck into when you're traveling. So it was quite fun. So anyway, we've been up to Helsingborg. That's where the castle was. And now we're going west to Roskilde. This is the home of the Vikings. So this is really Viking history at its finest here. Here's their city hall, and here is their church. And a lot of their kings and queens are buried here. It's very historic. You notice it has two spires. And when we asked some lady which way to something, and she says, oh, there it is, the Twin Towers. They call it the Twin Towers. And then she apologized and said, oh, you're probably upset that I called it that. And I said, well, whatever, you got the name first, I guess. Anyway, but that's what this was called. And this is what the sign said about it. Important monument, unique architecture, mausoleum of the Danish royal family, 40 royal tombs, frescoes, etc. So it's the Roskilde Domkirke. So anyway, inside, this is a side altar that is the burial site of Christian IV, who was a major king in Denmark. He was called the Builder. He changed Copenhagen into a international or a European capital. So he's called the Builder and made Denmark a fine place to be. And so his family plus some other royals are buried here. There's his statue there, and a large portrait of him. Look at this beautiful room. It was just a beautiful room. Look at the different marbles, and the coffins are just beautiful. Anyway, so this is their Westminster Abbey, I guess. This is one of the Viking kings, Harald Bluetooth. He got Christianity was around for a while, but he was more or less made it Denmark's religion. His son or grandson, I'm not sure, ended up ruling England. And at that time, they had England, Normandy, and southern Sweden, and Denmark, and Iceland. But however, his family was kicked out in 1066 by the Norman invasion. So the Normans came in, which was the beginning of the end of the Vikings. So anyway, so Harold Bluetooth is quite a king, a Viking king. Is just a fresco. He's not buried here. They're not sure where his bones are, probably underneath the church at some point. First Danish queen, Margaret I. And here's looking down at from the second floor of the church. This is a model of where Queen Marguerite II, the present queen, this is going to be her coffin. That's what it's going to look like. Right now, she has a separate altar or a separate chapel, but it looks like this. So eventually when she dies, they're going to uncover that, and that's going to be where she's buried. This is her, Marguerite II. And this is her 50th Jubilee. 50 years on the throne. Her son, Frederick, the guy that started the race, and his wife in the red, and their 2 children in the front. Apparently his wife is Australian or Australian born. But everybody has their troubles. Her husband died recently, but he made a lot of his life grouching because no one would call him king. So he was kind of a pain in the neck, I guess. But anyway, in his later life, he moved off to his estate in France to stay and whatever. And then, of course, the other brother is behind, and his 2 children are in front there. So now I have this picture of Roskilde, so you get an idea where it is. That was the town we were, but it has 3 openings into Roskilde, and when the Swedes were coming, they could come down one of the 3 channels to attack the city. So what they did is they scuttled a whole bunch of ships across 2 of the inlets, so the Swedes would have to come down one of the 3 inlets, and then they could get a better chance to destroy the Swedish fleet. Anyway, these are some of the ships, the Viking ships that they scuttled. And so they've dug them up from Roskilde Harbor and redone them. This is the Viking warship they scuttled. So this is the original ship from, 1,200 years ago. So it's quite, and they've got 5 of these ships that they have dug up out of the harbor. Then you go outside and they have got replicas of the other merchant ships, etc., that they had, that the Vikings used. And they have, and you can take rides out into the harbor, except it's not tourist season, so we didn't get to do that. But here's a man and he makes these replicas. And they use linseed oil and pine tar, I guess, are some of the things he uses. And here he is chopping up the wood to make the Viking boats. And that was Roskilde. That was an interesting place with all the Viking history. And now we're back into Copenhagen. And this is such an interesting tower. It's the old stock exchange, but now, of course, it isn't. It's some other government buildings and so on. Here's the back of Christianborg Castle again. We didn't go in, but at the back, got all the royal stables. And here are the people in charge of the royal stables exercising the horses, which was kind of fun. And then we go to the Glyptotek, Carlsberg Glyptotek. Now, the guy that owned Carlsberg Brewery made a lot of money because he was the official supplier of beer to the Danish Navy. So that'll get you a few bucks. So anyway, he had lots of money, and so he invested in art. And this Glyptotek is his art museum. Its claim to fame is that it has a whole room of Rodin statues. Now, this is why I had to call Christy, because I thought, well, I think, this is called Eternal Spring, and the Kiss was also there, and the Thinker, and I'm going, well, I don't think the Thinker is in the Glyptotek. I thought it was in Paris. And then when I phoned Christy, well, it's a copy, but it's an authentic copy, and then I found out that in France, the first 12 copies are considered sort of original copies, or after that they're worth very much money. But anyway, this one here is about the 6th or 8th copy of the Thinker. This one is called Burghers of Calais, and it's the 3rd cast. So anyway, but this one intrigued us, but it had no name on it, so we didn't even know what it was. So I went home and looked it up, and yes, it's called the Burghers of Calais, and it was a statue done to honor these aldermen, burghers, in the French city of Calais, who when given an option, we'll destroy your town or we'll take you prisoner. And so the aldermen or these burghers said, take them prisoner to save the town. So this is what the statue's about. And wouldn't you know, a couple of weeks ago, I was reading a mystery by Louise Penny, the Canadian writer. And what's the book based on? The Burghers of Calais. So it's amazing how when you travel, how you're more aware of things. And it's just, that's why you travel. You learn so much, and later on you can piece all these things together. So anyway, this was one of Rodin's pieces. Now this is the garden in the middle of the glyptothèque, and you can have coffee and just relax. You know, the one thing that I went to see and they didn't have is they've got another room like Rodin's of Degas statues of the ballerina stuff, and I would have liked to have seen that. But for some reason, I didn't get it out of the woman why that section was closed, or maybe it was on tour. I don't know, but we couldn't go there anyway, so we didn't get to see that. This museum also has a bunch of Egyptian and antiquities, Etruscan and Greek artifacts. Apparently, the Danes had some expeditions into Egypt about the time of King Tut. That they were doing a lot of anyway, they had got a lot of these Egyptian artifacts that are now in the glyptothèque. We asked where the Danish art was, and they said, well, if you wanted to see the ones from Skagen, you had to go to Skagen. This was the only one left of the Skagen artists. We didn't see any there. So that was it. And then, of course, you have to go to Tivoli, which the Tivoli Gardens, the original amusement park. Okay? And here is one of the unusual buildings. It started in the mid-1800s. It's got all of these lights. What we were doing there in the afternoon, I don't know. We should have been there at night when all the lights were up, but we'll have to go back to Copenhagen and go at night and get the full benefit. But we did have lunch here looking over the beautiful scenery and gardens. We didn't go on the Drop of Doon or the Inner Wheel roller coaster. Thank goodness we didn't go on that. So, but we didn't even go on one of these things here. I could probably have ridden the giraffe. But anyway, it's a beautiful little setting, and one that I would go back to. This, you can tell this was an old picture. I've got brown hair in this picture. This was when I took the original time I went on our way to Sweden. It's a statue of Hans Christian Andersen, and it's on Hans Christian Andersen Boulevard, which is where the Glyptothèque and the Tivoli Gardens are. This was also taken at that time. This is the main square. Hasn't changed very much. I'm not sure the McDonald's sign's still up there, but anyway, still a lovely big square. And this is a shopping street that was going up to Kuchenberg Palace. And the last night we were there, we decided, let's go walk up to the Little Mermaid and see it from the front instead of the back. So that's what we did. We walked up to see the front part of the Little Mermaid. And on the way back, we're walking and we saw this huge square of all these beautiful looking buildings. And what the heck's this? What have we found? Where are we? Well, you know what it was? It was Marguerite II's palace, Amalienburg Palace. And she lives here in the winter. This is her winter palace. And then she goes up to the Jutland Peninsula for the summer. And actually, this was in the news lately because it's her 50th Jubilee, and Kate from England, Princess Kate Middleton, that's her, if I can't remember her name. Kate Middleton came over here for lunch with the Queen and Frederick's wife. And they had a picture of Frederick's wife and Kate coming out of the palace. So she's just recently been there, and they're at home in Amalienburg. And the cars come through those pillars over there. And there's another, you could be in England here. They've got the guards with the Busby hats and the little spot where they stay. So anyway, I've got a little bit more to say about Denmark, but I'm just going to stop the share for the minute because I'm out of pictures. But anyway, I guess what I'd like to say about is the the idea of the Danish people and the mindset that, and why I thought they were so such good citizens of the world. You know, when the COVID came and they had to get vaccinated, nobody complained and whined. They just got vaccinated. And when we were there, so many people had been vaccinated. There wasn't any COVID, and it was completely open, no mask, nothing. And it wasn't that they did it because people complained. Nobody complained. They just did it, and it worked for them. Of course, now they're having a little bit more trouble from another batch, but whatever. I thought, and the whole thing is because they're worried about the community good. They do things for the value of the community. They do a lot of international good works, and they follow the rules. But it's kind of funny because there were a couple of signs when I first got to the Copenhagen airport. And one sign was you go into the bathroom and there's a sign there that says, only take 3 sheets of toilet paper. And then another sign was at the entrance to the airport. And there's a big sign that says, something to the effect of, you can only kiss for 3 minutes. So anyway, I thought now there's a rules community if I've ever seen one. Is you can only kiss for 3 minutes at the airport. So anyway, mind you, maybe that would take the younger kids and saying, well, we got 3 minutes. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, that's all I've got.